Hey everybody, I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. This is the topic of my brain over the last maybe 6 weeks or so, and I've been having trouble coming up with exactly how to make this video, to be honest. So I'm going to start by saying that something that I have sort of struggled with over the years is the idea of playing with a very shimmery sound. Okay, I didn't realize that I had this problem. But I did take a lesson recently with somebody who turned me on to the idea of making my sound like almost more magical through the use of shimmer. Shimmer can be described as maybe vibrato. It can also just be described as sort of an idea of spin or momentum in the sound. And I did realize after taking this lesson that I do think about this a lot, and I don't utilize it as much as I probably should. The other thing that came to my head after I made this realization was the concept of shimmer is something that you hear constantly in singing, and as someone who's always listening to opera and sort of solo instruments, like even like Doc Severinsen on the trumpet, there's so much shimmer in those sounds. And it's funny because we hear this stuff and we all recognize how wonderful and beautiful it is, but then we go to play and we produce something sometimes very different than that. That's maybe a lot more dull or not as ringy, or, of course we're not doing it intentionally, but we maybe don't have the understanding of some of the basic mechanics of how to get a shimmery sound. So that's what I want to talk about today. So the first step is when you're playing your trumpet long tones, when you're doing your warm-ups, it's not like the idea of shimmer comes like later in your practice time when you only use it on certain things. Think of like the first notes of the day that you're going to play as something that has shimmer in it. So it becomes intrinsic to your sound. You are always playing with a beautiful sound. You are always playing with sort of a concept of spin in the sound. That's not something you wait to do. Even if you're playing lip slurs or your Clark studies or just any old scale, adopt the mindset that you're going to put some kind of sort of spin or shimmer into every note that you play. And I'll try to give you some examples through this video. The first is I'm going to play like a little song for you. This is a song from a sight singing book, and I always use these kind of in warm-ups. I'll show it to you. This is meant for sight singing, so you would solfege through these books, but I'm going to just play one of the melodies for you. Okay, so hopefully you heard inside of that performance some of the sort of easy shimmer or some of the vibrato I'm putting into the notes, and particularly inside of the connections between the notes. When you add a little bit of vibrato and a little bit, it almost feels like a little bit of looseness here due to that vibrato or due to that spin or due to that lack of tension. It makes movements between notes so much easier. It's so much more reliable in a way to ascend, from a C to an F or whatever the interval might be. So I'm going to encourage you as a practicer to highly think about all the things you do in your patterns, like I said, scales, slurs, whatnot, or even simple melodies, and try to find a way to add some kind of ease in your connections. I've had so many trumpet teachers over the years who've said phrases like, "Don't force it." And I've come to realize that what they mean is they want a very natural, easy quality of sound production to come through. And I think everyone has their own version of what that means, but something that has really clicked for me lately is to listen to singers and try to emulate that ease, that non-forcefulness through this idea of shimmer or spin. So I'm going to play some excerpts for you now. And I'm going to play it without shimmer and play it with shimmer, and then you can kind of see the difference. So let's take, for instance, Clark's second study. Normally you might play something like this. It's a little mechanical, it's a little bit boring, I'm just kind of blowing straight through it. Nothing about that is wrong, but if I try to put it with a little shimmer as if it was a little bit more musical, it might come out more like this. So not only did I change a little bit of the rhythm of the exercise, I used those, I don't know if you can think of the Clark study, it has those like slight accents on each group of 4. And I use those as my moment to bring that shimmer into that group of notes. Instead of just blazing my way through the exercise. So that kind of slight lean of a accent is done with that sort of shimmery sound, and it kind of frees you up for the next 3 notes, and then you just kind of are riding this little wave. So another example would be just a plain scale. Again, like the Clark study, I just played it straight through. Nothing wrong with that. But what if I put a little shimmer, a little vibrato, a little bit of spin, a little forward motion in terms of sound as I go note to note to note. Again, I'm not blazing through the scale, but it sounds more musical. One of the best lessons I ever got was taking everything you do technically and making it more musical. And conversely, taking everything you do from a musical perspective and making sure that you're also understanding the technique of it. And like I was saying at the beginning, you don't want to wait to institute your musical thinking till later in your practice. So the opposite is always also going to be true if you're playing an etude or a solo or an excerpt or a jazz thing. You'd want to wait to address technique until you're way too far along in the process. So we're starting to get this idea that as musicians, we always want to kind of bridge our musicianship, our shimmer, our kind of the beauty, the artistry with the technical things that we're trying to accomplish. I hope this was helpful. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed. Drop me a comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.